Hey everybody, today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a healthier alternative meal that you can feed your dog when they have an upset stomach or they're having some diarrhea, regardless of what the cause is. And that is using a squash vegetable like zucchini, is what I have here, some fish, and then kefir, which is a probiotic beverage, which I'm going to talk to you guys about each of these ingredients in addition to what is known as, it's a supplement, it's known as slippery elm bark, and that's what I have here. I just opened the capsules, that's what's in this dish here. Now this is an alternative meal that I learned about almost 3 years ago now, out of necessity and out of me doing my own research after my dog Macy got a really bad case of gastritis, is what they called it. I had to rush her to the vet because not only was she having diarrhea, but there was like blood in the stool. I mean, it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. And she was 12 years old at the time. And it was very scary. And so obviously we went straight to the vet. They gave her a really strong antibiotic medication called, it was something with an M, like metronidazole or something like that. That might not even be it, but it was something like, sounded like that. It started with an M. And then they gave her gabapentin. And I kid you not, as scary as her initial symptoms were, the things that I got from the vet actually seemed to make it worse. Like within the next, I followed the instructions for at least a full day and a half to 2 days, giving her the medications. She had a common reaction to the gabapentin, which caused like motor incoordination. So she was kind of stumbling and could barely walk. I mean, she still wouldn't eat. She didn't want to drink. So the short version of this is that I went online, started to do my own research. One site that was super helpful for me, and I still refer to them a lot, is a website and blog called Dog Naturally. If you're not aware of it, definitely check it out. It's a great initial stop or spot to check when you're kind of researching some of these natural alternatives and whole foods for your dog. But anyway, in addition to that side, I looked at some other sources, and this just kept coming up again and again. And so as an alternative to the traditional bland diet, which is usually, we all have done this before, it's usually, a bland chicken, like a chicken breast, cooked chicken breast, white rice, and some pumpkin. And like I said, we've all done this, but after doing this research, I've learned that this typically recommended bland diet of chicken, pumpkin, and white rice can actually make things worse for your dog's GI system. So when they're having diarrhea and their stomach's upset, this is actually not the best. That is actually not the best recipe or meal to give your dog. And the reason why is because although chicken is a very cheap, lean meat and pretty bland, most conventional chicken that we just go and buy in the grocery store, unless it's like truly free range and organic, most conventional chicken is very high in omega-6 fatty acids, which is really not good for any of us, especially the dogs, because it creates more inflammation and their GI system is already inflamed. So the chicken is actually not the best for that reason, in addition to the fact that a lot of dogs, people don't always know this, but a lot of dogs are allergic to chicken. And it's like one of the top ingredients on the allergen list for dogs is chicken. So there are better protein sources like fish, which I'm going to talk about today. So chicken, not the best. Rice, really not great. In and of itself, rice is not something that our dogs really need to be eating. White rice, especially, is super high on the glycemic index, meaning the dog's body is going to process it pretty much as pure sugar. So on a scale from 0 to 100 on that glycemic index, I believe rice is like in the 70s, and that's pretty high. And so when you've got high glucose or blood sugar levels, that's also going to increase inflammation in the body, which you again do not want because their GI system is already upset and inflamed. So we've got chicken, not the best, rice, really not the best. And then the last thing, pumpkin, which they do recommend obviously because of the soluble fiber, it's got moisture, which is fine, but pumpkin is actually even higher on the glycemic index than the white rice is. So again, for that reason, and the link to inflammation, it causing inflammation in the body from the high sugar levels, you know, when they're in this place of distress with the upset stomach, that's really not what you want. So again, there is another alternative. And I'm telling you all this detail because I'm very passionate about this, because I am convinced this saved my dog. This saved Macy. Her gastritis was so bad, even after we went to the vet and I tried their medications they recommended and I wasn't seeing improvement. She wasn't eating, she wasn't drinking. So that's really what fueled me to look and say, okay, there's gotta be something else I can do for her. And so because she wasn't eating, even though I found that these ingredients that I'm about to show you were the better option, I needed a way to get it to her. So I actually made this meal, and I actually had to like puree, blend it, put it in a syringe, and I had to just feed it to her by mouth just to kind of get it in her system. And I kid you not, within 24 hours, everything was better. She was willingly eating, willingly drinking. I fed her like 2 or 3 meals like that, just by me kind of giving it to her by mouth, and everything stopped her. I mean, it just, so again, anyway, you can probably hear it in my voice and tell that this is, I feel really strongly, and from my own personal experience, this was a godsend and a lifesaver. And so again, like I said, this was almost 3 years ago. She was 12, she's now 15. And it's just been my go-to anytime she's had an upset stomach, which she actually hasn't had until a couple of days ago, which is why I'm like, well, let me go ahead and do a video about this. Because she got some food like as treats, you know, for my kids and things that she doesn't normally eat. And then she ended up getting some diarrhea that day. And so it kind of persisted through the day. And then so I went ahead yesterday, started her back on this specific meal, and it stopped. And so I'm going to continue this for today and to probably the next day or so. So again, I really hope this is helpful to some of you at home in the future. If your dog is experiencing any kind of diarrhea, really loose stools, anything like that. And I'm not saying don't go to your vet, but what I am saying is that this is a much better alternative. Always do your own research, try this out, and hopefully this is helpful to you. So with that said, instead of doing the chicken, which again, like I said, is really high in those omega-6s and really low in the omega-3s, you really want to go for what like a whitefish, like cod, for example. Cod is also very easy to digest, even more so than traditional meats like chicken, because there's not a lot of connective tissue. So your dog's body can really take in the nutrients from the fish. And added bonus, the whitefish is really high in omega-3s, which is the good omega oils that you want. And that actually helps decrease inflammation, which is what your dog needs when their GI system is upset. So instead of chicken, whitefish. Now, this is not actually cod that I have here. I'm using what I have on hand. This is what I used yesterday. I'm going to buy some cod at the store today. But this has seemed to not bother her as well. This is just some mackerel that I had on hand. But again, if you're starting out for your dog, definitely try to go for some whitefish cod. And I usually buy it frozen at the store. And I just lightly bake it or steam it or saute it, however you want to. Just lightly cook it, and then that's it, nice and plain. Again, the whitefish, excellent. Next thing you're going to want to do, instead of rice, which of course they do rice, they recommend rice because rice will bind to the water and kind of stop or hopefully stop the diarrhea. But again, rice is super high in sugar, so you don't want to mess with that. And the pumpkin, also high in sugar. So instead, you have 2 really good options, and that's zucchini. That's what I did here today. Or if you can get your hands on a butternut squash, that's excellent as well. Zucchini is great because you're going to get that same, you're going to get both soluble and insoluble fiber. That's going to help bulk up the stool, but it's much lower on the glycemic index, and it has a lot of moisture, so that's a win-win. And then the next thing a lot of people don't know about or talk about, and I think I mentioned this in another video, I kind of give Kefir to Macy periodically just as her probiotic, so that's what I like to do. But for this meal, when they have the upset stomach or diarrhea, Kefir is phenomenal because it's an excellent probiotic source. It's going to help, aid their digestion by adding the good, beneficial bacteria back into their system. And that's really what they need. And I'm convinced this is one of the best things that really kind of helps settle the issue of their GI upset. So we've got the fish, again, whitefish, zucchini, and then some kefir. And then the last couple things is just some moisture. So you can, you want to have add some moisture and fluids to the meal. And so you can do that with just some filtered water. That's what I have here, just a little bit. Or if you have it on hand, a really high quality bone broth is excellent too. So you're going to get the moisture plus all those added benefits from the bone broth. And then the last thing, and again, this was something I learned about and actually had forgotten about until recently. I still had it in my cabinet, is slippery elm bark. This is a supplement that has a lot of benefits. So again, do your own research, but one of them is that it can and does soothe the GI tract. It will help decrease inflammation in the body, which is what you want. And it is also a prebiotic, so it's going to help feed the good bacteria that you're trying to build back into their system. So again, I know that's kind of a lot. This is something, again, I'm very passionate about. I have seen this work for my dog on multiple occasions. And again, I'm convinced this kind of brought her back from the brink when she had that horrible case of gastritis a few years ago. So anyway, all I had here, I started with my zucchini. And again, Macy's I have a large breed dog, so she's about 70 pounds. So you're going to adjust all of these amounts based on your dog's size and how much you want to feed them. And again, if their stomach's upset, you're going to start with very small amounts. Especially if they're not wanting to eat, just slowly introduce it and ease it in, and then just see how it goes from there. But this is some zucchini that you can see here. I shred it, and I've talked about this before in other videos, is that you really, if you're going to feed a vegetable source to your dog, dogs don't need a ton, but some added veggies have some nutritional benefit. That's great, but you want to give it to them in a form that their body can actually process and digest, and you need that to be kind of shredded, blended, and in some really kind of small or pre-processed form. So basically, I just sauteed this zucchini in the pan, and I used the smallest shredded section here and just shredded it, and then that's how I got my zucchini. That's about, I don't know, half a cup less, maybe a little bit less. So I've got my cooked sauteed zucchini. I've got my fish. Now again, whitefish, like cod, is what you want to feed with the zucchini, or like I said, you can do butternut squash. So that's what I have here. And then the kefir, which you add, and then the slippery elm bark. Now, slippery elm bark, this I purchased on Amazon. It's in capsule form. What they recommend, and again, do your own research, but what I found recommended is about 1/4 teaspoon per 10 pounds of body weight. So I just opened the capsules in another dish and used my measuring spoons to make sure I got exactly what my dog Macy needs for her weight, which is, like I said, about 70 pounds. So you want to be pretty accurate on that. And then that's it. You're going to just put it all together and give them something that not only their body can digest, but also give them the things that are going to soothe the system, add moisture, and add that good the probiotic, the good bacteria back into their body. So that's the zucchini going in her dish. Here's her fish. I'm gonna put that in. And then I'm gonna do the kefir. I'm just gonna add a little bit in. And I don't pre-measure, I'm just doing a little bit. And then I kind of mix that in with the zucchini. Macy likes kefir. She's, like I said, she's had it a lot, just kind of as a regular supplement she gets each week. But this might be new to your dog, so you're gonna have to go lightly depending on how picky your dog is. But again, the goal when they're having diarrhea, you know, the danger with diarrhea when you have an upset stomach is they're losing a lot of water. And so they can quickly and easily get dehydrated if they're not willing to eat or drink. And so that's why you want to make sure you're adding moisture to the meal, which is what I'm doing next here. That's the, this is just filtered water, but like I said before, if you have a bone broth, you can add that as well. And actually, before I do the water, I'm gonna go ahead and add my slippery elm bark, which, like I said, I pre-measured this based on her body weight from these capsules. And then I take, because it's a powdered supplement, so I just kind of fold it in and mix it in with the zucchini and kefir that I just added. And I try to leave most of the fish on top, because that's usually the most enticing part of the meal for most dogs, at least for mine, is that meat, that fish, because it smells good, it tastes good. And then I'm just kind of pouring the water in, and that's really it. So I know that was a lot of information. I don't know if any of you have heard this before. You know, I'm very into nutrition and dog nutrition and feeding my dogs real whole foods. But this was new to me when I first learned about it. So again, I really hope this was helpful. And if your dog is having any kind of GI upset issues now, or it comes up in the future, give this a try and come back, leave a comment and let me know. I'm just curious if anyone has had such a positive response and result from feeding this way like I have. All right, I hope this was helpful. Please come back, check out another video.